no one expected a young kid of color to go somewhere and be successful. I had my high school counselor tell me on senior day that basketball wasn't a profession and that I needed to focus on going to a vocational school and learning a trade. And I don't know if she was telling me that because I was a kid of color, or she was telling me that because she just felt like I just wasn't very smart. I never found out the true root to why she said that. But what I took from that was the same thing that I carried with me all through my career. I wrote on a piece of paper that day and I taped it up in my locker. You're not good enough. You'll never be good enough. You'll never be what you're supposed to be.
Hey, it's another great day to get better. Welcome back to the show. Becoming Undone is the podcast for those who dare bravely, risk mightily, and grow relentlessly. Join me, Toby Brooks, as I invite a new guest each week to examine how high achievers can transform from falling apart to falling into place. Growing up in a rural southeast Missouri town as the only African-American family in the community, Chris Carr's earliest dreams formed thanks to the example of Blair Underwood in the TV show LA Law, where he expected to become a lawyer and live the good life after college. However, the appeal of the game of basketball loomed large, with several family members before him paving the way for scholarships and championships. By middle school, however, Chris had decided to become a pro skateboarder. However, after his prized and hard-earned Santa Cruz skateboard was confiscated by a well-meaning basketball coach, he basically had no choice but to go all in on hoops. After a stellar high school career, he ended up at SIU Carbondale, where he led the Salukis to 3 straight NCAA tournament appearances before being drafted in the second round with the 56th pick by the Phoenix Suns in the 1995 NBA draft. Today, a coach at Drury University, Chris is proof positive that hard work and dedication can pave the way to a lifetime of achievement. Join me in a first for the show, a 2-part episode, where in part 1, Chris talks about his humble roots all the way to the NBA's brightest stage, fittingly in episode 43, Elevate. This week is a big treat for my Saluki fans. Chris Carr was definitely the man back in my high school days. I can remember being in high school, and the 43 was something that I aspired to. Chris, welcome. So glad to have you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So the show, as I shared just before we started, is really about how we go from falling apart to falling into place, how we transform from setbacks and turn them into success. And certainly not a lot of people grow up in a town of 1,500 or so and turn that into an NBA career and slam dunk contest and all the many things that you've done. So I guess the first one's kind of a softball. What did you want to be when you were growing up in Ironton, Missouri?
Well, let's correct the population first. Pilot Knob was 722 people.
Pilot Knob. I had my facts all wrong. Ironton was a big city for Pilot Knob.
Yeah, Ironton had about 1,200, and then Arcadia had about 692. So it was just a bustling metropolitan of people, to say the least. You know what's interesting is as I grew up, we were the only African American family in our community. And so with that, I didn't really have a set person that I looked at or anything. So the number one thing, I watched TV quite a bit. And LA Law was kind of the show that I really kind of sought out and was like, okay, this is pretty cool. This guy never loses. So I really took a liking to Blair Underwood on LA Law. And I got an opportunity to see him all the time. I seen him. He was clean cut, dressed to the nines, and he never lost a case. And so I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer. That's what I'm going to be. And so I initially aspired when I was coming to Southern Illinois. I was like, I want to graduate in 3 years, and then I want to get right into law school, and I want to be a lawyer, and I get to wear clean cut suits and have my hair cut really nice, and I'll never lose. And lo and behold, I did not have any idea about life in general. So that definitely didn't work. So, but no, that was what I initially aspired to be. I wanted to be an attorney.
That's great. So basketball came early for you. Obviously, you ended up at a Division I school, but that part of Missouri is not really SIU territory. You're more in the Mizzou neck of the woods, and
Yeah.
so talk me through kind of growing up in that area and how basketball became a part of your life.
Well, basketball is kind of like in my family in particular, is more like a religion than it is just a pastime. I had my older brother Johnny played at Three Rivers Community College and had a successful high school career. My sister Eleanor went to Moberly Community College, won a national championship. She went on to play at Southern Illinois back when they played in the Gateway Conference, and I believe helped them win a conference championship when she was there as well. So I came from a long line of just really good athletes in my family. So it was kind of like expected that I was going to be a basketball player. Now, to what level, I don't think anybody knew, not even myself, but I just knew that I wanted to work as hard as I could to be the best I could be. And you know what, ironically enough, that almost didn't come to fruition. I actually, sidebar note, I thought I was going to be a professional skateboarder whenever I was in middle school. And so that was quite interesting. My high school coach, I'm skateboarding in the parking lot one day, and he comes out the door and he says, "Hey, come here." And I skate over there. I say, "Hey, what's up, coach?" And he's like, "Hey, do you ever plan on playing for me in this gym?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, of course I'm going to play someday, but not right now." And he's like, "Well, why don't you come in here today?" And he says, "The only two things I'm going to tell you," he says, "don't ever question me and work as hard as you can." And I was like, oh, "Okay, cool." He says, "Give me that skateboard." So I'm thinking, all right, listen, first of all, another sidebar note, I had to save up so much money. I had bought a brand new skateboard. It took me a year of mowing grass, collecting aluminum cans to buy. If for anybody out there that's a skateboarder, way back in the day, Santa Cruz made like the best skateboards. And I saved up and bought a Santa Cruz Jeff Kendall. And I was so excited about the skateboard, and I literally just gotten it, put it together. I'm like, man, this is going to be the best summer. I'm going to skate all summer. And he took my skateboard, and to this day, I'm 49 years old. I still have no idea what he did with that stinking skateboard. Like, I thought I would, like, he'd give it to me when we were done playing pickup or whatever. No. So I said, "Hey, coach, what happened to my skateboard?" And he says, "You don't need to worry about that. You need to focus on getting better at basketball." I'm like, okay, well, he'll give it back sometime. Like, it's like, it's my skateboard. Like, I saved up a lot of money. I've never seen it again.
Coach, come on.
Yes, unbelievable. And my JV coach, who was at my Missouri Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony, like I told that story, and the whole room is just busting up laughing. They're looking at this 6'6" guy, like talking about, I want to be a skateboarder. I was only like 5'5" at the time, so I was little. But nevertheless, I never found a skateboard, and so therefore that's kind of how I became a basketball player, so to speak.
Yeah. So basketball takes over for skateboarding, and I grew up in a small town. I remember pickup games, pre-cell phone era. So you just you met at the court, and whoever came played. And I don't know if that was your experience, but kind of talk me through that junior high and high school experience, going from 5'5" and wanting to be a lawyer to starting to really see some other opportunities materialize for you.
Yeah. So we'll go back to seventh grade. Seventh grade, my mom makes me quit the basketball team. I'd made the 8th grade team as a 7th grader, and I got a D+ in math at my first quarter grade reports came out. And my mom, to understand Pearlie Mae Carr, she worked really, really hard. She cleaned houses for people. She ironed sheets and curtains. And so the value of $1 was like exponentially exaggerated because we didn't have much. So she had saved up enough money to buy basketball shoes for me. And grade reports come home, I get a D+ in math, and she makes me go in front of the whole team at practice. We're getting ready to go into practice, and she says, she comes in the gym and she's like, "You're going to tell your coach you ain't playing." Because she said, if you don't know how to read and write and do addition and subtraction, you sure enough ain't going to be dribbling no ball. And so I had to go in front of the team and tell the team and my coach that I have to quit the team because I made a D+ in math. Oh. So now, the measure that I'm about to tell you about next would be considered a high level of abuse and mental trauma in today's era. So my mom, she's like, you're going to carry those basketball shoes around everywhere you go, every day to school, and you're going to carry them with you to every class as a reminder of what you are not getting to do. And she said, and the rule, and then I applied it to my life, and I've applied it every day since. Don't allow anything to take away your ability to do what you love to do.
This is the first we hear of Chris discussing the wisdom and the life lessons he and his family gained from his late mother, Pearlie Mae Carr, but it's a powerful one. As Chris pointed out, in today's world of entitlement and bad behavior gone unchecked, such an approach would almost be considered abuse. Chris had gotten a bad grade, and he wasn't going to be allowed to play basketball. But what his mom did next was teach. She made her son carry around the basketball shoes that she herself had saved and worked for, but that he couldn't wear because he'd underperformed in the classroom. In the process, Chris realized that by not doing his best, he wasn't the only one who was suffering. His coaches suffered, his teammates suffered, even his own family suffered. He decided then and there that from that point forward, he would do his best, and that mother's message, undoubtedly hard to deliver in the moment, has served Chris well ever since.
And man, that was the biggest lesson that I took from that. And she told me, she's like, I'm going to beat the skin off of you if I walk in that school and catch you not carrying them shoes. And so I carried these shoes to every class. Do you realize the ridicule that I had to experience from classmates? It's like, oh, look at Chris carrying around his dummy shoes. That's like a dunce hat. I mean, it was every day that I had to ridicule for the whole year. It didn't just stop. But from that, I did learn. My mom said, you can never make nothing less than a B. And she's like, I don't care what you do. You can make B's. She's like, I don't expect you to make A's. You can make A's in the stuff that you're good at, but you're gonna maintain a B average in everything that you do going forward. And so with that, I moved on, got into 8th grade, had a really good year, but I wasn't growing. I had other guys that were like 6'3", 6'4" in 8th grade. I'm 5'5", 5'4", 5'5". Freshman year of high school, I start off the season. I make the varsity team. I get selected to be on the varsity team. After the first week of practice, I get demoted to the junior varsity team. After the second week of practice, I get demoted to the freshman team. And I don't even start on the freshman team. So think about that. This is almost a better story. MJ is arguably one of the most iconic figures in basketball. And his story it doesn't have this many twists and turns to it as mine does. So as a freshman, I didn't start on the JV team. I played quite a bit, but I didn't start. But then we had the freshman games on Saturday morning at 8 a.m. that absolutely no one came to. And you end up playing the same 4 teams like over and over and over again, every place that you go. And so I was doing that, and I'm like, man, this really stinks. And I got my high school coach and my JV coach telling me the whole time that, whenever you decide that you're going to work harder, that's when we'll be able to move you up to a higher level. So I went from 5'5" to between my freshman year from May of my freshman year to August of my sophomore year, I went from 5'5" to 5'10". So I grew 5 inches over the course of the summer. Wow. And I went from not starting on my freshman team to starting on my varsity team as a point guard / forward. Mm-hmm. And between my sophomore year and my junior year, the same summer, I grew from 5'5" to 6'2". And now I am starting on varsity. I'm all conference, first team all conference, first team all district. I'm the area's most outstanding player. And then from my junior year to my senior year, I grew to about 6'4.5". And we have a really good team. We have a really good year. And I drove one of the 10, 11 players in the Missouri State high school basketball history to be voted unanimous decision first team all-state. And so there aren't many names on that list like Anthony Bonner, Steve Stepanovich, Bradley Beal, Larry Hughes, Bill Bradley. There's not many that have done that. And so for me to be able to do that from the area that I came from is pretty historic. And so that's kind of my perils of my high school career, and then that catapulted me to go to Southern Illinois, and we did some really good things there.
Yeah. Well, let's stick in high school for just a minute, because I think there's a couple of things that are really powerful there. First of all, 5'5" freshman, you don't have any way of predicting that you're going to hit 6'6" by the end. And then also, like you said, kind of the mental, and you're what, 14 at this time, where you go from, man, I made varsity as a freshman, to now I'm not even starting. Like, what did you tell yourself to keep going during that kind of series of demotions? It'd be really easy to just say, man, this isn't for me. Give me my skateboard back and I'm done.
There you go. And so my brother, I referenced my brother Johnny earlier. So he had kind of like set the bar for boys basketball at our high school. I mean, he was a stud. He had the school's rebounding record. He had, but all my brothers and sisters had all the records at my school. And so it was expected that I was going to play. But my high school coach, every day, I got so tired of hearing, you're never going to be as good as your brother Johnny. You don't work as hard as your brother Johnny. You're never going to be as good as your brother Johnny. I'll never forget January 13th of my freshman year of high school. I came home and I told my mom, I'm going to quit. And I said, I'm tired of listening and being compared to Johnny in everything that I do with basketball. And my mom looked at me. She's like, well, first of all, you're a Carr man. You don't quit. She says, now, if you decide after you go through the rest of this season that you don't want to play, now that's fine, but you're going to get a job, you're going to work, and now you do have to make straight A's because you're going to go to college, you're going to get your education. She says, but I just want to challenge. She said, I'm just going to tell you this. You don't ever let another man make you quit. There's not only God can stop you. Yeah. Don't ever let another man make you quit. I don't care what it is. Another man can't break you. Yeah. And so from that day forward, the rubber started to go to the road a little bit by little bit every single day. And that really allowed me to be able to face the adversity, as you were alluding to, of being demoted, being cut down, being, quote unquote, put in my place, so to speak, in a community of no one looks like me. Mm-hmm. I'm the only one. And I don't have anybody that's been down the path before me other than my brothers. And they're gone away. My brother David, he's in the service. My brother Stephen, he's in the Navy. My brother Johnny, everyone's gone. So it's just me, and I don't know how to navigate this. So I had to grow up and figure a lot of things out on my own.
Mm-hmm. Your mom sounds like an incredibly wise woman. As you're talking, we're almost the same age. I graduated high school in 93. Like you said, there were some tough lessons that we were taught by coaches, by parents, and that would border on abuse today. And I find myself like there's a real, and you know this as a coach today in an NIL era, like if I come at somebody the wrong way today, they're in the portal tomorrow. Man. We have to handle student athletes and young people maybe differently than you and I were handled. And I feel like there's some lessons that are lost in that process. Like it's tough and it isn't something we would have chosen, but man, it molds us. It changes us. You wanted to quit basketball. Your life would have been completely different if your mom would have just said, okay, Chris, come on home. And that was that.
Yeah. And the probably the better thing about it was, and you know this in a small town, there aren't many things that supersede like your parents, your basketball coach, your football coach. Like there was no like wiggle room. You go to basketball practice, you work hard. And if that coach tells me that you're doing anything other than doing what he's telling you to do, you're not going to like it when you get home. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the lesson that I was taught. I was like, man, like my coach like supersedes like the police. And like people wouldn't tell me if I got into some mischief in school or in town or whatever. It was never like, we're going to call the police. They would be like, oh no, we're going to call Coach Bone or we're going to call your mom. That stopped everything. The world stopped if I heard that. I was like, you know what? I'm sorry. We was just messing around. We didn't mean nothing. I'm trying to get out of it quick because if it got to coach, I'm going to run forever. And I'm not going to like him. And he would always say that if you do anything, boy, you're not going to like me. And I'm like, yep. I know that. I'm aware of that.
I don't know about you, but I just started running for fitness 2 or 3 years ago because as a basketball player, if you're running, you did something wrong that day. Like that's punishment. That's not
Man,
fitness. Like you messed up. So it took 30 years for me to get over that mentality. Like this is actually good for me.
Yeah. Yeah, man. If you were running, and believe me, we ran a lot. I just don't understand how athletes today don't condition the way that older guys did. I just think there's something missing there. There's something with all of this technology and all of the deep introspective look into shoes and feet and being flexible and being durable and all of that stuff and being efficient. It's like people get hurt more nowadays. I can't understand how we got there, but that's a whole different message for another day.
You're right. So you end up highly successful in high school, recruited. Rich Herron comes calling. I don't know if he was the one who did your recruiting. I would guess so, but
initially it was Sam Weaver and Ron Smith. And so they were the rock star recruiters back then, and they brought Coach Herron in late, and they had to convince him to sign me.
Well, so I'm glad they did, for one thing. Who else was involved in your recruitment? I mean, you see this on the other side now, and recruitment being a completely different animal than it was 20 or 30 years ago. But what were the other options for you other than to go to Carbondale?
Well, so here was my first choice. So I had St. Louis University. I was friends with Julian Winfield, Scott Highmark, Erwin Claggett. Those were like buddies. I'd played AAU ball with them. I'd played with them in the summertime. And a guy by the name of Corey Tate, he is from Pattonville High School, went to Mizzou. He was also in that mix. And we were like, man, let's go to SLU. Man, that'd be big time. Yeah. So SLU was my first choice. Southwest Missouri State was my second choice. University of Arkansas Little Rock was on the list, and they had Derek Fisher that played there at the time. He and I are the same age. And then the last two schools were Southern Illinois and UMKC. And Tony Dumas also played in the NBA, was at UMKC at the time. And they weren't even Division I yet. So those are my schools. And so the first time I spoke to Coach Herron on the phone, I had told him, like, yeah, Coach, man, like St. Louis U is like my top choice. I feel comfortable. Coach Winfield has done a great job recruiting me. And I feel comfortable there. I know all the guys. And Coach Herron's like, well, we're just going to keep talking. We're just going to keep talking, big guy. I mean, that's what we do. We just keep talking. I was like, okay.
Now, for those not in the know on this one, Chris's Coach Herron impersonation is spot on. A legend in Southern Illinois basketball from Benton, Illinois, Rich was highly successful at the high school level before taking the reins at Southern Illinois University Carbondale from 1985 through 1998. He led the Salukis to prominence in the early 90s, taking them to 7 straight postseason appearances, including 3 straight trips to the NCAA tourney in 93, 94, and 95, with Chris being a huge part of that success. Coach Herron had these trademark huge eyeglasses with this little SIU logo in the corner. And I met him ever so briefly when I transferred to SIU about the possibility of walking on or being a practice player. I can hear him in my mind, not wanting to squash my dreams, but knowing full well that I wasn't D1 material. Well, we'll see, big guy. Coach Herron passed away on Christmas Day in 2020, but his impact on Southern Illinois and on Chris lives on.
And Coach Grauer, Rich Grauer, was the head coach at the time. And we got to the 1st of March. I'll never forget this. March 2nd, 1992. Rich Grauer calls me and said they had lost the game. And he had said, hey, Chris, man, I'm excited to recruit you. We want you. Hopefully we'll get a chance to sign you. He's like, I don't know if I'm going to have a job tomorrow. He literally gets fired the next morning in my 2nd hour class. I said, oh, no. So I'm thinking, okay, hey, Southwest Missouri State, I know Coach Spoonhour. I really like him. I spent a lot of time in Springfield, so this will be, easy. Coach Spoonhour takes the SLU job and tells me, I'm not going to recruit you at SLU. And literally, Coach Herron calls me, hey there, big guy. How's your choices looking now? So God rest, shout out to Coach Herron, God rest his soul. That was kind of how my recruitment went. But, Coach Weaver, he called every week religiously, same time. He called to talk to me. Coach Smith would call. So Coach Weaver would call on Sunday nights and Coach Smith would call on Wednesday nights. Mm-hmm. And they would call, hey, how's it going? Hey, I heard you had another big game last night. Hey, man, so we're going to get over there and watch you play again. Southern would play on Wednesday night. Coach Smith would call me after the game, call me like 10 o'clock. Hey, we got a big win tonight at home. We're looking to get in the NCAA tournament, and, we're hoping that we can continue to do well. And, yeah, they came up short that year. I signed, and then next thing you know, we three-peated, and then we kind of go on from there. So it kind of took off.
Isn't it amazing to look back on life at those kind of seminal day for you where, who knows, if SLU wins that game, maybe he doesn't get fired. Maybe the dominoes don't fall and the coach from Southwest doesn't go to SLU and your entire path is different because of, a ball that bounced one way or a three that didn't or did go in. I mean, you can make yourself crazy if you really stop to think about those things. But in retrospect, we realize that path forward led to the life of achievement that you had. So you alluded to that. You head to Carbondale, and they're on the upswing. Local legend Rich Herron turns into college basketball legend Rich Herron, and you go on to 3 consecutive NCAA appearances, just really successful seasons. SIU has had kind of been marked by these seasons of basketball success. And in my estimation, your teams were kind of the first big taste of a team from Carbondale can get to the big dance. Like, this is possible from here. And so that collegiate experience for you came out strong and just kept getting better. From the outside looking in, it just seemed like you were on this upward trajectory. Were there any obstacles, hurdles, adversities that you were fighting through in Carbondale that the outward facing world wasn't aware of?
Oh, I almost left after my first week of school. I did. And this is another Pearlie Mae Carr greatness right here. So I've been at school a week. Marcelo da Silva, 7 foot tall. Shane Wells, 7 foot tall. Ashraf Amaya, 6'8", 240 pounds, about 3% body fat. Mirko Pavlovic, 6'9". I had never, ever, first of all, coming out of high school, I was like the first of what you would call now like a hybrid post player. I had a skill set, but I was a basketball player. I didn't really have like a position. I had never seen this many big people on the same team in my entire life. Marcus Timmons, 6'8", 7'4" wingspan. I mean, it was just, and it just kept going. I mean, Tyrone Bell, 6'3" and 210 pounds, strong and physical and tough. And, you got Chris Lowry, he's a little pit bull. I mean, it was just like, so I called my mom. I'm like, hey, Mom. I said, I think I'm going to leave. And she's like, what do you mean leave? I said, I think I'm just going to transfer and go to Three Rivers. And, I think that'd be like the better path for me. I just think I would do better there. My mom says, boy, you can do what you want to do. If you leave, don't come here. And hangs up on me. Click. Dial tone. That was it. There was no discussion. There was no debate. There was no, if you leave, don't come, you can't come home. And I was like, so I was stuck in like this weird space. I'm like, all right, I'm 1 week into school. It's either fight or flight. But I know if I fly, I don't know where I'm going. And so I was like, and then too, in that era also, from where I'm from, no one expected a young kid of color to go somewhere and be successful. Yeah. I had my high school counselor tell me on senior day that basketball wasn't a profession and that I needed to focus on going to a vocational school and learning a trade. Mm. And I don't know if she was telling me that because I was a kid of color or she was telling me that because she just felt like I just wasn't very smart. I never found out the true root to why she said that. But what I took from that was the same thing that I carried with me all through my career. I wrote on a piece of paper that day and I taped it up in my locker. You're not good enough. You'll never be good enough. You'll never be what you're supposed to be.
This right here. Sometimes the arrows to our heart come from people seeking to wound us. Racism, classism, insecurity, they all serve to load some people down with a hate that they fire off any chance they get. Other times, it's quote-unquote friendly fire from people who think they're telling us something valuable to actually save us from pain and embarrassment, but they hurt nonetheless. I once went to meet with a college professor during office hours to get some help with my calculus homework. He struck up a conversation and asked me what I was majoring in. When I told him, he asked what I was going to change it to, since I clearly wasn't smart enough to get admitted into physical therapy school as I'd planned. Now, I'm sure in some twisted way he thought he was being helpful, and I'm fairly sure Chris's guidance counselor probably thought the same. But what Chris heard in that moment was fuel. He didn't let the doubts and the naysayers win the day. He wrote what they said on scraps of paper and taped them in his locker, reminders of why each day's practice needed his full effort. They were powerful motivators to do his best, and that's precisely what he did.
And I felt like that was significant for me as a constant reminder that I have to have almost an anger, almost like an inner rage or fury that I needed to attack this basketball thing with, to attack my academics with. So I didn't end up pumping gas at the local gas station and doing what everyone thought that I would be.
Yeah.
And so I reached a point my freshman year, I was like, okay, you got one or two choices. You can leave or you can stay and learn to fight. Now, the fight is going to be a challenge because you're doing it against some really good dudes that are tough and they're veteran, and it's an uncharted water for you. I'd never played with people that were better than me. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how good I was. I just knew that I wasn't as good as them. So I just sat down. My brother, he said, Chris, make a list. He says, and start and put yourself somewhere on the list, anywhere. It doesn't matter. If you put yourself last, that's fine. He says, but put yourself on the list and just make it a point every day that you're just going to not go to the top of the list. Just mark one person off at a time that you do something. You just win. Just try to win one day. Don't think about the season. Don't think about, he says, first off, just win one possession. He says one possession just might be you getting a defensive rebound or blocking a shot or just finishing off a play. He says, and then try to get to where you can win a drill, where it's a rebounding drill, whether it's a one-on-one drill. And then he says, once you do that, then he says, can you win a segment of practice? Now, once you get past that, can you win a whole day of practice? Can you win a week? Yeah. Can you work your way into a point where no one can deny you because you're constantly winning? Mm. And that was kind of my progression as a freshman. Like, we play exhibition game against athletes in action. I get a DNP, coach's decision, in an exhibition game.
First game of his career, and Chris gets a DNP, a did not play. He goes from being the star at his high school to not even seeing the floor in college. It was a humbling reminder that things had changed.
And first time in my career that I came off the bench, I did a lot of things, but to not play, it was like a smack in the face. And I'll never forget Coach Heron. I'm talking with my mom after the game, and he comes up and he says, "Hey, Pearlie Mae," and gives her a kiss on the cheek. And she looked at Coach Heron and she says, "Is he working hard?" And Coach Heron looks at my mom and he says, "Well, Pearlie Mae," he says, "I think he can work a little bit harder." Hmm. And she looked at me, and I knew when she gave me the look, I was like, "Coach, why did you do that?" And she said, "Okay." And so we go to Fazoli's. Remember Fazoli's? Yeah. Over across from the mall? Mm-hmm. And that was someplace we always went, Nate, after every game, all through college. We go to Fazoli's. We sit down. I got some other people from my hometown there. And so I'm sitting there. And, out of respect, like, no one in our house, no one started eating until, my mom started eating. So I'm sitting there. I got my spaghetti, and I got the good garlic bread sitting there. I'm just sitting there, and I'm just waiting. And she's sitting there picking at her nails, and she's rocking back and forth. And I'm just waiting. And then she looked at me and she says, "Boy, don't you ever let that man tell me that you ain't working as hard as you can to be the best you can be ever again." She says, "As long as you got 2 hands and 2 feet, you can always work." And she said, "That's the reason why you didn't get out on that court tonight. You ain't working hard enough." Mm. And she says, "That was an embarrassment to our family for him to tell me that you weren't working hard enough." Wow. And I didn't even, yes, ma'am. Yeah. That was it. And that was Coach Heron. So once he knew that, then he held that over my head for the next 2 plus seasons. Every time, well, I know what I'll do. I want you to rebound. I'm just going to call Pearly May. I was like, Coach, no, I got it. You want me to tackle this guy to go get a rebound? I'll do that, but don't call her. And that was just kind of how it was. I was deathly scared of my mom. And, here I am now, this big 6'6" guy, and I'm still fearful. My mom passed away over 10 years ago. I'm still fearful that she might come out of the ground and get me tomorrow if I do something not in her favor.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what her favor might be, but I just like, well, I better think about this before I do it because she might get me. But that was what kind of catapulted me through my freshman year. And I'll never forget the first game that I got significant minutes. I went in at the media at the 12-minute mark at St. Louis University my freshman year. And I played the last 12 minutes of the game as a double overtime game. I played both overtime segments. And I had 6.6 rebounds, couple block shots. Then a week later, we go to Mizzou in the storied game where Melvin Booker hits the three against us my freshman year. We had him on the ropes. Again, another double overtime game, triple overtime game. Well, I went in at like the 14-minute mark, and I played the last 14 minutes of the game and played all three overtimes. And then from there, that was it. I'm going to play 18 to 22 minutes a game. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do as long as I don't get dumb fouls and just be active. And my number one thing was Coach Heron told me, and this is where kids today, you have to be different with how you speak to them. Coach Heron told me, when you're on the court, you're option 5. If you can't dunk it or lay it in, kick it out to one of the upperclassmen. There wasn't no let me get in my bag. Oh, Coach, I can hoop. Let me do my thing. It was like, if you want to play, this is the job. Rebound, defend, run the floor, get the ball to those guys.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. That was it. There was no more questions. And that's where today, like, you have to coach differently and you have to kind of massage them differently to get those type of points across.
Mm-hmm. And I hate what this NIL era has done to mid-major basketball because it's really made it a proving ground for Power 5 schools where someone like you had a chance to grow under the same coaching staff, surrounded by the same teammates, and you flourished together. You had a chance to kind of let the cake bake. And in this day and age, if you lead the MVC in scoring as a sophomore or junior, you're either going to the league or you're going to go to an SEC or a Big Ten school, or you're going to find new opportunities. And it sounds like an old man in me lamenting the lost old days, but that process for you grew you as a player and as a man. I mean, the social aspect of that, I see this so often where kids that transfer 2 or 3 schools, like they're in a constant state of uproot. You never get a chance to have that community around you. And the mental toll of that, I think, is something that we really haven't looked at.
Oh yeah, there are a number of different aspects to that, and that's a huge rabbit hole to go down. I'll just say this: I had the opportunity to learn from Ashraf Amaya and Tyrone Bell and Chris Lowry. By the time I was a junior, I was able to take the step forward to now it's my team. I'm the guy. I'm a leader, and I understand how to lead us. And I refuse to let this string fall on my watch. Mm-hmm. And so, like, as a freshman, I'm filling in, I'm coming in off the bench, I'm playing, and I'm surrounded by great upperclassmen. Well, now as a sophomore, we still have a really good veteran group, but we don't really have like a go-to type guy. Marcus kind of emerged as that a little bit. Paul Lusk did as well, but we had a very balanced team. I mean, I started off the season averaging like 25 points a game, 27 points a game, and I hurt my knee against Ole Miss. And I had a strained MCL, and I played with it the whole year. I never set out, never did anything. I just kept playing, kept practicing, kept playing. But my numbers were all over the place until I got to like February. And then I started the season. The month of November, I averaged 22 points a game. The month of February, I averaged 22 points a game. And the month of March, I averaged like 25. And that was during the last of the regular season and the postseason. So I had a chance to learn, grow, emerge as a leader, both on and off the court, and really be able to influence and impact the people around me in a positive way. And that's what really helped me as I progressed through life. And I don't think that kids nowadays, whenever you try to talk to them about having a big picture for life, they can only see life in a 3-second snippet on Snapchat.
Mm-hmm.
They can't see life in a big picture that just has stages and has different corners that you have to turn to get to your desired destination.
Yeah.
They want it to just, well, this 3 seconds, I want all I can get out of this 3 seconds. Well, there's still the rest of the day. Oh, yeah, well, something else will happen and I'll get another 3 seconds of gratification. It's like, well, no, why don't you invest in yourself to get a lifelong period of gratification versus these minute snippets of gratification? And it's different. And to your point, I'm at Drury University now, and it's the same thing. You recruit a kid, you bring him in as a freshman, and he's a good basketball player. Maybe because of COVID and the transfer portal, you get a kid that's probably a Division I kid, falls to your level. Great. You're excited to get him, but you're also skeptical and leery. If he plays and he plays well, he's going to transfer.
Mm-hmm.
If you bring him along slowly, knowing that he needs it, but what he does really well will be enhanced. Oh, I'm unhappy. You didn't play me enough in November, December. He's going to transfer.
Yeah.
If you have a kid that needs to develop and you spend his freshman year trying to really grow and develop him as a young man, as a person, as an athlete, as a student. Oh, I didn't play. And this is the here and now, the me gratification time of life. I'm going to transfer.
Yeah.
So really and it's the same way at the mid-major level, even now the Ivy League is getting hit with guys put up great numbers in the Ivy League. They're going to BCS schools. I mean, and so it's just like, I don't know how this cycle gets ended. I don't know how it gets rectified. I don't know how it gets corrected, because it's really a tough cycle to be in.
Yeah. And for our generation, the toughest, because you didn't have any of the options as a player, but now as a coach, you have to deal with all the ramifications of it. So hard to build a culture when your roster churn is every season.
Yeah. It's almost like highly paid AAU basketball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think even some of the shoe circuit teams have a little bit more stability than what college programs do, because you can hold it over their head. If you leave us, you won't be able to play on another EYBL team.
Yeah.
Where we don't have that. Like, shoot, we can transfer. You can leave Drury and go up to Bolivar and go to Southwest Baptist, or you can go up to St. Louis and go to UMSL. And it's like, oh, well, hey, that guy not only is leaving us, but he knows our whole playbook, you know?
Right.
And so it's a little bit different monster now.
Yeah. In your era, not very many, I don't know of any one and dones. There were a few guys who made the jump straight from high school to the NBA, but college basketball was really a proving ground where you grew and matured and worked on your craft. Not many players leaving the Missouri Valley early to go to the NBA, but you had a spectacular season, led the league in scoring, 22 points a game, scored nearly 2,000 points. This is in your 6-year career in the NBA, but at Southern in particular. So you decided to make the jump to go to the NBA. Didn't have the degree in hand, though, but I'm curious to know Mom's perspective on that. I think there's two ways this could go. But let's face it, athletic ability is a perishable commodity. And
yes.
And when you are at the top of your game, and you mentioned a sore knee, and I'm picturing that old parquet floor in the arena, which is probably the hardest surface on the face of the earth, the most unforgiving court that's ever been built.
Yes, without question. Without question.
And so maybe armed with that idea that one bad injury and this dream evaporates. So Talk me through that decision to make the leap. So that summer, I had really taken like my training and everything to a whole different level. And I was in the weight room twice a day. I was working out in the morning. I'd go to summer school. I'd go to the rec. I'd shoot. I'd play pickup ball. I'd go to Addicts Park and play pickup at night. And then I would go run on the stadium stairs in my strength shoes. On the weekends, I was commuting back and forth to St. Louis every weekend to play in the River City Pro-Am that was started by, then NBA guy Anthony Bonner. And I had went up there and I'd had an amazing summer. Like I've really grown, flourished, and did a lot of really good things. And so I got to that point. I had told two of my family friends
And my two best friends, I said, here's my big picture. This is my goal. If I'm the player of the year in the conference, we go back to the NCAA tournament and I'm the Chevrolet player of the game again, I'm leaving school for the NBA. And they looked at me like my head was spent around backwards. And because you just touched on it, no one was doing that. And like one of my friends, his name is Buddy. He says, "Why do you think that you can do that?" And I said, I don't know why I think that I can. I said, I just don't know why I couldn't. And so from that point on, that was where my sights were. And so as I pushed and pushed and pushed and worked and got better and had good games and continued to be nationally recognized, that's when everybody was tuning into Sports Center at 10 o'clock to see if they made the highlights, or tuning in to Friday night plays of the week to see if your dunk or something made the plays of the week. And that was kind of like the thing. And I was like, I'm on plays of the week all the time. People actually know who I am. I feel like I'm really, really good. So that was kind of my process of how I went about it. So I go at the end of the season, we lose to Syracuse in the NCAA tournament. I had, a really good game. We lost 96-92 and like just an absolute shootout. We're the only team and one of only like three teams ever in Jim Boeheim's era to ever shoot them out of the zone. We still have a Midwest region record for the most threes in a Midwest regional game. We made 23 pointers. Jane Hawkins, I think, was like 8 for 9 from three. And I mean, we shot the ball extremely well, and I had a really good game. So we go through that. I go through my father having lung cancer and passing away, and he's really sick. And after the game, I fly home to be with him in his final moments before he passes. And from there, I just decided, I was like, I got all this stuff going on. I think I'm going to try to make a jump to really do this. And I'd been contacted by a few agents, and the one agent in particular that kind of really stood out to me as somebody that I wanted to visit with was Mark Termini out of Cleveland, Ohio. So two of my family friends, we jump in the car, we drive to Cleveland, Ohio, meet with him over the course of 2 days. I do a workout for him, and he's like, okay, yeah, I think that this is a chance that we can make together. Yeah. And I was like, okay. We come home, I drive home that night, and my mom's in bed, and I'll never forget, I go in, lay down in bed with her, and she's like, boy, what you doing home? I was like, well, I said, I want to come home and talk to you. And she's like, uh-oh. And I said, Mom, I think I'm going to leave school. And she was like, where do you think you're going? And I said, I'm going to leave school and go to the NBA. And she kind of laid there for a moment, and she's like, well, you don't have your degree. And I said, I know. And she's like, well, the only way I'm going to give you my blessing on being able to do this, she's like, you got to promise me you'll get your degree. And I said, yes, ma'am. And so that was the only bargaining chip that I have was I said, I promised my mom I'm going to get my degree, and that's what I'm going to do. And in January of 2013, I completed my degree in criminal justice with a minor in psychology.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I kept my word, and I got a chance to be a part of the most exclusive club in the world at the same time.
Absolutely. Such a great story. Man, I'm blown away by Mom's wisdom once again. I think for a lot of people, they don't realize just how short that window of opportunity is. And 1 year could make all the difference. And
yeah. So
you get drafted in the second round, go to the Suns. And I think you're probably best known as a Timberwolf, and
yeah.
Your performance in the dunk contest and things like that. But it wasn't like you were drafted into the league with one team and stayed there throughout. That was and for a lot of folks, it's a tumultuous journey. It's new opportunities and then letdowns, and I'm sure you're working behind the scenes with your agent all the while. But when you look at the gaps in a lot of players' resumes, what's going on during those 3 or 4 months where you're unsigned? So talk me through that NBA journey for you, starting off in Phoenix.
Well, yeah. So the journey began draft night. So I'm driving home, and we have a really bad thunderstorm. I'd worked out. I'm driving home. I got a house full of people at my mom's house. Everybody's ready to watch the draft. My mom had cooked. Everybody's excited. Driving home, Mississippi River has flooded, and I can't get across the river. The bridge is closed. So start hitting the side roads, cut back through, and go to Cesar, Illinois. That's where my girlfriend's parents' house was at. And we go, and I said, well, we're going to watch the draft here. So I get on, I call my agent, like, this is the number that I'm at. And so when somebody's ready to call, this is the number that I'll be at. He's like faxing to every team, here's the number he's going to be at. He won't be here. This is the number he'll be at. So I'm like, okay, great. So start watching the draft. I'm excited because I'd had an unbelievable workout in Phoenix. I'm like, Phoenix is going to take me at 27, or San Antonio is going to take me at 29. There was a chance that Cleveland could take me, but it was kind of iffy. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be a late first round pick. I'm really excited about this. Had great workouts for all of those teams. We get to pick number 16. Cleveland Cavaliers select not their projected pick, which was supposed to be Michael Finley. They select Bob Sura. I said, uh-oh. This is not going to be good. So, well, it's okay. You know what? Somebody else will, fall off the board. So then Orlando drafts at 19. They draft David Vaughn, who Phoenix was going to take at 21. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. So now Phoenix, they draft Michael Finley at 21. I'm like, oh, well, there's a wing. They're not going to take me. So I'm like, well, this is gonna stink. Well, Jerry Colangelo calls my agent and says, we've got to take a big at 27. So I'm like, okay, well, if they take a big at 27, I got San Antonio at 29. Okay, here we go. And then Minnesota had like 4 second-round draft picks, like 34, 37, 42, 48. I mean, they had like a bunch of picks, and I had a great workout with the T-Wolves as well. San Antonio drafts Corey Alexander out of Virginia. I said, uh-oh, what have I done? And so I'm sitting there. So then now the second-round picks start coming, and they're flying off the board. Lawrence Moten goes to Vancouver, and this guy. Eric Snow goes to Seattle at like 48. I'm like, and I'm just sitting there. I am so dejected, like beyond belief. I'm just like, bad idea. I'm going to look like an idiot. And commercial break. They come back from commercial break, and it says, and they're like, wow. It's like, oh, the commercial break. Boy, Phoenix wasted no time in using up their 56th pick. Phoenix sent so like Chris Carr out of Southern Illinois University. I'm sitting there. I'm like, got my head down. I got this stupid cat on my lap. I don't even like cats. And I'm sitting there brushing this cat, and I'm like, and the Phoenix, I get drafted on a commercial. So that was kind of how it started. And then I'm like, I go to Phoenix and we start workouts before training camp. And it never dawned on me. I'm just thinking like, hey, you know what? I got drafted. I'm going to be on the team. I'm excited. And so my agent is telling me every day I speak to him, he's like, you got to play well today. You got to keep impressing them. You got to play well. I'm like, why does he keep saying this to me? I had never taken the time to look at the roster. And so I start doing the math in my head. And I'm looking down the roster, Elliot Perry, Joe Klein, and I get to Antonio Lang, 14, Mario Bennett, 15, Chris Carr, 16. I said, oh my goodness, it's not a guarantee that I'm going to make this team. And so I get absolutely nervous because we're getting ready to go to Flagstaff for training camp. I'm like, oh my goodness, what have I done? This is another in the long list of just being a dummy here, making this decision. We're in training camp. We're there for 2 days, and we had morning practice. We went up on Sunday. We did our physicals. We had our first practice Sunday night. We practiced Monday morning, Monday evening. Tuesday morning, we practice. And then we get the call, and we say, hey, you guys got to go over to the arena early. So it's Michael Finley and I. We're the only two on the bus. I'm like, oh boy. I said, well, I'm getting cut. We walk in this classroom, and Jerry Colangelo's sitting there, and he says, I got a lot of faith in both of you guys. And he's like, Michael Finley, your athleticism, your defensive prowess. Chris, your athleticism, your length, your scoring ability. And he looks at us both, And I mean, and it's one of those, if you know Jerry Colangelo, it's like there's a certain look whenever he gets like very serious. He's like, and he looks at both of us and he pulls his glasses down and he says, "Don't prove me wrong." And I'm like, man, that was really serious. I'm like, yes, sir. I'm thinking we go out into practice. There's all these media people around. And I'm like, why are these media people here? It's just like training camp. We just practicing. I didn't have any idea. The Suns had traded Dan Marley and Antonio Lang and a future first round draft pick to Cleveland for Hot Rob Williams. Roster goes 16 to 14, now to 15. Mm-hmm. Insert Mr. Carr. I have a really good preseason. Wesley Person decided not to go on an East Coast swing. And I have a 35-point game against the New Jersey Nets in an exhibition game. I had a 28-point game against the Charlotte Hornets. And I had a 25-point game against the Miami Heat up in Catskill, New York. And we come back off of that. And like, I'm 4 games into the preseason, and I still have the clip in my Foot Locker, the USA Today clipping, NBA leading scorers. And it's got me above Michael Jordan, Reggie Miller, Latrell Sprewell, and like all of these like super duper stars that are Hall of Famers, NBA greats. And you got lowly Chris Carr on there, like 4th in the NBA in scoring. And I was like, you couldn't tell me anything at that point.
How can you not love Chris Carr? He gambled on himself. He made a promise to his mom that he would finish that degree eventually. But he took what would have been his senior year at SIU and turned it into a rookie season in the NBA. He missed his own name being called during the draft while the TV coverage was at commercial, and then he finds a way to earn a spot on a crowded Phoenix roster. Early on, his name is in print beside NBA all-time greats, yet he's still thoughtful and thankful and humble. For that short little skateboarding point guard from Pilot Knob, Missouri, Chris had found a way to make his dreams happen, and he wasn't done yet.
And so, God willing, God blessed me with the ability to make the team. Coach Westfall believed in me. God rest his soul. And he was like, Carr, he says, I believe in you. You're going to be on our opening day roster. And I looked at him like, duh. I mean, how could I not? I'm one of the league's leaders in scoring. You can't cut me. This is how dumb and naive I was to the business side of basketball. But nevertheless, that was kind of how I got started. And man, I up and down rookie year. Played some, started some, didn't play some. Coach Westfall gets fired. Cotton Simmons takes over. God rest his soul. He really pushed me so hard. And a lot of times in ways I didn't really like or appreciate, but I appreciate now because he really molded me into become a thinker of the game and having a high basketball IQ and really being a student of the game and studying and understanding how your team wants to play, how other teams want to play, and really being able to really break down the game in minute pieces to allow that to be a part of the collective build. And by the time we get to the playoffs, Michael Finley rolls his ankle. I played in the playoffs, and that catapulted me into a nice contract with the Timberwolves over 3 years, and the rest is kind of history from there.
Yeah, well, that was certainly a wild ride, and for you emotionally, I mean, I'm picturing you as this young kid growing up in rural Missouri and feeling a little out over your skis and in over your head at SIU that first week, and now you kind of go from being the man in the MVC to being on this roster. You're on an NBA roster, and there's this recalibration that has to occur where
always
you have to prove to yourself that you belong. Did doubt ever creep in? Like, did you suffer with that?
No, I what was interesting is, so like the very first day we're in Phoenix and I had a roommate. So this is like, you can tell like where your priority is on the team based on how the team treats you. So they didn't give us meal money. They said you can eat 2 meals a day at the hotel. So this is day one. And I'm rooming with a guy, his name is Orlando Smart, little point guard. Matter of fact, he came out of Boise State. And he's a good little player. And he and I were roommates in the hotel. And so he's like, he said, I'm nervous, man. NBA guy's going to be in there today. He's like, well, how are you going to approach it? I said, I'm just going to be aggressive and let them figure out how to use me. I said, I'm a scorer, I'm an athlete, and I'm going to play as such. I said, why would you get here to now and change? And he was like, what do you mean? I said, what got me here was what everybody has seen me do on the big stage, on little stage. I said, I'm not going to come now and like now be like a assist guy. That's not my game. And so we went into the first workout, and there were a handful, like Wesley Persons was there. He played a little bit with us, but they had a lot of free agent guys in working out. Paul Lusk, as a matter of fact, was invited out to work out with us for a few weeks and got invited to training camp as well. And, you know, we played the first day, played okay. Second day, played a little bit better. But now, Jeff Hornacek, Dan Marley, Kevin Johnson, Elliot Perry, Joe Klein, AC Green, they walk in the gym. And I said, I'll never forget this. I looked at Orlando Smart and I said, today's the day. And he's like, what's that? And I said, I'm going to either be the hero or the GOAT. I said, but they're going to know who I am after today. And he was like, he said, all right. He said, well, I'm going to rock with you then. I was like, bet. So they start trying to pick the teams. I just go out on the court and say, no. It's me, Paul, Mario Bennett, John Coker, and Orlando. That's our 5. And the vets are all looking like, hey, who's this dude? And they was like, all right, cool, let's go. We win like the first 7 games of the day. And I mean, and when I tell you I was on such a roll, I mean, like I felt like King Kong. And I was like, if this is what and I was talking trash. I'm talking trash to Dan Marley. I'm talking trash to Jeff Hornacek. I'm like, if this is the NBA, then y'all are in trouble. And they like, yeah, young boy, relax. It's September, you know. But the confidence that I went into it with was such, this is what I need to do. Well, here was the other side of that whole scenario. There was a team from Italy, AC Milan, were a big EuroLeague team, the Italian league. They had sent the president of the team. It came to the United States. My agent had them come over. And so they had came over to watch me work out with the Suns, with Jerry Colangelo. He knows the guy. So this guy's in the practice facility watching us work out every day. So after this day, it was great. The Phoenix Suns, they say, we're going to offer Chris a contract, no guaranteed money. And, you know, he's going to have to make the team in order to get his contract. Well, this team from Milan offers me $225,000, a car, housing stipend, all of this stuff. So I'm like, man, this is awesome. The next day we come back, I play even better the next day. So now Phoenix Suns like, okay, you know, we don't have salary cap room, but we can sign Chris to the rookie minimum and we'll give him $10,000 guaranteed. And, you know, and this, that, and the other. Team from Milan says, no, we'll give them $300,000. So we go through the weekend. Well, by Monday, they're no longer allowing the dude from Milan down on the practice court. He has to watch from the windows upstairs. They won't let him in the building. It was the funniest dynamic. So now that weekend, I get the call, hey, Chris, grab your stuff, come downstairs. So I pack up all my stuff. I go down to the lobby and they say, here you go, Mr. Carr. We have a room for you. They moved me into my own suite, king bed. And they's like, and I had an envelope for per diem. I said, I must have did something right because now I'm getting some money. So, yeah, so that was kind of my first few days as being in a professional setting. And man, it was great because I was like, I got a chance to just play and just be me. And I had the ball in my hands. They're like, wow, this dude can really, really score the ball. Yeah. And it was a lot of fun, but that kind of catapulted me into training camp and on into making the team and getting into the season. So, but it was definitely, I never went in with doubt because I was like, I had the same philosophy I had in college. If you crack that door, I'm going to find a way to wedge myself in. If the door is shut, I can't get in. But if you leave a crack, I'm going to find a way to get in the door. That was my philosophy, and it paid well for me for a lot of my career.
That's awesome. I think looking back, just in hearing your story, growing up, being short and being a guard, like you were ahead of your time as a positionless basketball player, and you could play all 5 spots and play them well.
First competitor, Chris Carr, 22-year-old, second-year player, 56 pick. Phoenix, then signed as a free agent with Minnesota this year. Chris Carr, a combination of power and finesse.
You end up in the slam dunk contest in the finals against, I don't know, some guy from the Lakers. I don't know if the audience has heard of Kobe Bryant, I think it was. Talk me through that experience, NBA All-Star Weekend, and being not just in the league, but All-Star Weekend and the dunk contest was a different thing in 1997 than what we see today. So that was the brightest of spotlights.
Well, the probably the more memorable part for me, obviously the dunk contest was just being able to be a part of that was just tremendous in itself. And so that was amazing. It was the first time that they honored the NBA's 50 greatest. And I had an opportunity to not only be a part of All-Star Weekend, but I got an opportunity to meet the guys that had forged and paved the way for a young kid from Pilot Knob, Missouri, to even have a chance at being able to make the NBA and being able to provide for my family by playing the game of basketball, the guys that have been down the path before me. And so that was just such a surreal experience. I'd gotten an opportunity. I mean, Walt Frazier came back and spoke at our preseason banquet one year. So I got to meet some NBA guys, but I had never had an opportunity to meet Larry Bird, other than when we played the Celtics and he walks in to talk to Charles and he's like, I don't talk to rookies. And I'm like, hey man, Larry Bird, man, nice to meet you. And he's like, hey Chuck, can you tell this guy I don't talk to rookies? I was like, wow, this dude is really, I'm standing right here, but that was that's the rite to passage, that you got to earn that. It's not just given to you. And I had an opportunity to be at NBA All-Star Weekend and see Larry Bird, and he's like, Chris Carr, how you doing? I'm like, he knew my name. Couldn't tell me anything. And being able to see the dynamics of the Pistons guys and the Bulls guys and the Celtics guys and the Lakers guys, and seeing how they all kind of segregated themselves to we don't mess with them dudes. Yeah, we don't mess with them dudes. Yeah, Magic and MJ, they're friends, but this is my group right here, These are my guys right here, and I don't mess with them guys. So it was interesting for me to be around that and be a part of that. That being in the slam dunk contest was just, man, you got the world watching you on a big stage. You're on that court all by yourself, and it's like, wow, this is pretty cool. And getting a chance to do it with Michael Finley also was a lot of fun, just because we used to have dunk contests after practice our rookie year every other day, and trying new dunks, and I bet you can't throw it off the wall and 360. Bet you can't throw it off the backboard and put it between your legs. I mean, we were doing that stuff after practice, and so to be in that moment and be around him was a lot of fun. And obviously getting a chance to compete against the late great Kobe Bryant, who, if anybody would have been in that building and bet that he would become what he became, there would have been 0% of people that would have bet on him other than himself. Yeah. And he would have taken every bet and doubled down on all of them. And that was the type of drive, determination, and motivation that he possessed. And that's what made him an all-time great.
Two things here. First, Chris's respect for the late Kobe Bryant is obvious, but he's absolutely right. In 1997, Kobe Bryant wasn't yet the Black Mamba. He wasn't known around the world for his maniacal work ethic and his drive to be the best. He wasn't known for his 5 NBA titles and 4 MVPs. What he was an 18-year-old NBA rookie who believed in himself. Although Chris took him to the finals, ultimately Kobe captured the title. The second thing I want to point out here is less obvious. As I went back and watched footage of Chris in that competition, in that Timberwolves number 43 uniform, I was taken back. 1997. I had grown up in Southern Illinois. While I started at a community college and spent one semester at a Division III school in Indiana, I eventually ended up at SIU. To see Chris on that stage at that moment in my life was surreal. Here was a guy from a spot in the road no larger than my own hometown who had pursued his dreams at the school I was attending, who had not just vaulted from there to the NBA, but was going toe-to-toe against the best. In that moment, Chris Carr not only represented the Carr family, or Pilot Knob, Missouri, or SIU Carbondale, he represented me. and I'm forever thankful. I hear similarities in your story as well. Those setbacks that are sometimes wake-up calls. Like, this isn't going to be handed to you in high school. This isn't going to be handed to you in college. This isn't going to be handed to you in the NBA. And the answer is you can either walk away and quit and give up, or you double down, you dig in. I just ordered his book. I haven't read it. I realized the Mama Mentality book's been out for a good long while, and I need to read it. But
it's great.
He is kind of the first person that really kind of solidified this, what you mentioned, the better every day, that incremental improvement. I don't have to become the best player on my team today. You mentioned your brother told you, like, just win this possession, just win this half. And that incremental improvement is kind of parallel to a lot of the things I've heard him say. Well, that's a wrap on today's episode, but be sure to check it out on the web. Simply go to undonepodcast.com/EP43 to see the notes, links, and images related to today's guest, Chris Carr. And also be sure to tune in next time as we wrap up the rest of Chris's career, battling through injury, becoming a coach, and navigating life not just as an elite athlete himself, but as a dad to a house full of them. If you enjoyed the show, I've got just one simple request. Would you be so kind as to share it with someone else? It would really go a long way in helping me spread the word about Becoming Undone. I know there are great stories out there to be told, and I'm always on the lookout. So if you or someone you know has a story that we can all be inspired by, please tell me about it. Surf over to undonepodcast.com, click the contact tab in the top menu, and drop me a note. Coming up, I have motivational speaker Tim Kite, as well as University of Washington strength coach Ron McKeefrey. Also on deck, former American gladiator Darren Malibu McBee, and my friend and cancer treatment expert Dr. Phil Anton. So stay tuned. This and more coming up on Becoming Undone. Becoming Undone is a Nitro Hype creative production written and produced by me, Toby Brooks. If you or someone you know has a story of resilience and victory to share for Becoming Undone, contact me at undonepodcast.com. Follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Becoming Undone Pod, and follow me at Toby J. Brooks. Listen, subscribe, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Till next time, everybody, keep getting better.